Today, we had a new group of emails that were revealed that Hillary Clinton previously tried to cover up. We're going to talk about what's in those emails. We're going to talk about what they tried to cover up, the payoffs involved. But before we do, I want to talk about Hillary Clinton's conspiracy theories, because Hillary Clinton, every time she's caught with her hands in the till, where she's caught doing something illegal, she always brings out these red herrings, which in many cases now are turning into red scares. Remember when the DNC emails were released? She said that Donald Trump was working with Putin. And I had several people there at the DNC that I talked to that tried to sell that ridiculous line. And now she's using that same line against Jill Stein. This is the Green Party candidate who's not on the ballot in very many states, who's only at 3 to 4% in the polls. Yet Hillary Clinton is so desperate, so concerned about Donald Trump. Why would she be concerned when the mainstream news media is telling us that she's 15 points ahead of Donald Trump? He's so pathetic, he ought to just drop out. He's going to lose everything for the Republicans. No, that's not the reality. And if you look at their actions, you understand they don't believe that either. So, you know, when we see this kind of red scare that she's constantly throwing around here, it reminds me of McCarthyism. Remember, there was the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, H-U-A-C. I think they just ought to change it to the Hillary Un-American Activities Committee, because she's throwing these accusations around like Joe McCarthy himself. You know, it was back in, if you remember, Julia Child's husband back in the 1950s when all this was going on, simply because he had been posted to Russia at one point. They pulled him in and questioned him, and he was basically knocked down in his career at the State Department because they were so paranoid about that. That's essentially what is happening with Jill Stein. And of course, Jill Stein is a hardcore socialist, but I don't believe she's a Putin puppet, as they're pointing out. What is the evidence that they have here? Well, the evidence is just like Julia Child's husband. She went to Moscow. She had her picture taken in Red Square. She went there for an RT anniversary conference, and she cut a video thanking her supporters for giving her the money to attend this conference. It is nothing but, as Mint Press points out, attacks and smear campaigns against anybody that is coming up in the polls or competition for Hillary Clinton. Okay, so this is coming out, and immediately journalist Glenn Greenwald refuted the accusation that was tweeted out by Andrew Weiss. He says, a day later in a tweet of his own, he says they're 100% false. He says it was only a matter of time before Jill Stein was smeared as a disloyal Kremlin sympathizer. That's precisely what they're doing now. Let's talk about the reality of what's going on with Hillary Clinton, because there are real crimes here that are being committed, that have been committed, that they're trying to distract you from with these red herrings, okay? What was released today, CNN points out, newly released Clinton emails shed light on a relationship between the State Department and the Clinton Foundation. These are emails that were not leaked by WikiLeaks. These are emails that were finally obtained after 4 years of trying by Judicial Watch. And we're going to talk about how the State Department and others tried to cover this up for a very long time. What they got were 296 pages of emails, 44 that Judicial Watch says were not previously handed over by the State Department. Now, out of those 44 emails, there are at least a little bit over 5% of these emails indicate criminal activity, pay-for-play activity. People from the Clinton Foundation contacting Huma Abedin, contacting Cheryl Mills, who are handling this for Hillary Clinton, and saying, I've got somebody that needs access to the State Department, do it now. So here's some of the things that they said. This is a top Clinton official, Doug Band, who was lobbying Clinton aides for a job for somebody else in the State Department. And in the email, he tells Cheryl Mills and Huma Abedin, quote, it's important to take care of, and they redacted the person's name. He reassured them that personnel has been sending him options, but you need to do this right away. And another one, this same Clinton Foundation official, the top Clinton Foundation official, Band, tells Abedin and Mills to put Gilbert Shagori, who is a Lebanese-Nigerian billionaire, in contact with the State Department's person of substance on Lebanon. Now, understand who this person is, okay? This is not your run-of-the-mill Nigerian prince that you see on Craigslist. This guy is a real Nigerian, and he's a real criminal. He was convicted of money laundering. So, of course, by the Swiss, of course he would be in contact with the Clintons. They got a whole network of money laundering criminals, and he paid, in a plea bargain, $66 million to keep from going to jail. But then he gets involved with the Clintons. And what he did with the Clintons, he gave them between $1 and $5 million. So they contact the State Department and they say, we need somebody that is of substance to talk to him right away. And they came back and said, well, we've got the guy. And then 20 minutes later, not even 20 minutes later, he sends back to them, says, better if you call him. Now is preferable. This is very important. In other words, this guy gave us a lot of money. Don't wait. Get in touch with him right now. And as Judicial Watch president says, no wonder Hillary and Huma Abedin hid emails from the American people, the courts, and the Congress. This is in a press release. He said, they show the Clinton Foundation, Clinton donors, and operatives worked with Hillary Clinton in potential violation of the law. Okay? In another incident that was revealed in these, we see that there's correspondence going back and forth with Huma Abedin. Somebody asks about some Clinton papers. She says they're on the bed in my hotel room. The door is unlocked. Just go in and get them. Now, all these 50 people who just earlier this week said that Donald Trump is not fit from a national security standpoint to be in office. This person who created multiple private servers to violate all the national security laws and put top secret and above top secret documents on it, who her assistants are putting her papers, her own personal papers, in their hotel room, leaving the door unlocked. Tell me how she's even remotely competent. But that's not even the key issue, okay? As we're looking at this, the president of Judicial Watch charged, again, as we said, that Clinton hid these documents to contradict her official pledge in 2009 that she would remove herself from Clinton Foundation business. And so the New York Times comes back and says, well, the Clinton campaign has suggested that Mr. Bann, who's the top official of the Clinton Foundation, was simply acting in his capacity as former President Bill Clinton's personal assistant, not in his role overseeing the Clinton Global Initiative. Well, that's a story in and of itself, a story that has been in the news for over a year and a half. People have been talking about the massive payoff for Bill Clinton. Look at this story from the Wall Street Journal going back to December. They say at Hillary Clinton's confirmation hearing for Secretary of State, she promised she would take extraordinary steps to avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest. Now, if we translate that into reality, if we go back and look at what really happened, those extraordinary steps were creating private servers, getting rid of a State Department inspector general, doing everything she can to avoid the appearance of criminal activity. And she has done that, and she's had the help of the Attorney General, as we will see here in just a moment. But then they also pointed out in the Wall Street Journal, more than 24 companies and groups and one foreign government paid foreign President Bill Clinton a total of more than $8 million to give speeches around the time they also had matters before Mrs. Clinton's State Department. That was a Wall Street Journal analysis. Now, that was in December of 2015. Back in April, ABC had been talking about this. They said Bill Clinton cashed in when Hillary Clinton became Secretary of State. And they point out that he used to get $150,000 when he would speak. Now, that's a pretty good fee for most people just giving a speech. But once Hillary became president, he started pulling in became Secretary of State. In 2010, 2011, he was getting paid $500,000 to speak to a Russian bank. He got paid $750,000 at a telecom conference in China. So that's 5 times what he had been making before. CNN pointed out in February this year, $153 million in Bill and Hillary Clinton speaking fees documented at that point in time. Okay, it's not just the $8 million that Wall Street Journal had talked about 3 months earlier. That was just essentially banks, okay? But CNN went through and looked at a full catalog and came up with a total of $153 million. They pointed out that Bill and Hillary, as they're putting out this influence, okay, 729 speeches from February 2001 until May. They got an average payday of $210,000 for each of these speeches. The two also reported at least $7.7 million for 39 speeches to big banks, including Goldman Sachs and UBS, with Hillary Clinton, the Democrat 2016 frontrunner, collecting at least $1.8 million for at least 8 speeches to big banks. Remember, this is back in February. This is when Bernie Sanders was making an issue of that. Didn't make an issue of her violation of national security, but did make an issue of her getting paid these big bucks for speaking to banks. And he said at the time, what being part of the establishment is in the last quarter, having a super PAC that raised $15 million from Wall Street, that throughout one's life raised a whole lot of money from drug companies and other special interests, said Bernie Sanders. Now, as the Daily Mail pointed out in this last December, It said Bill Clinton's speaking fees drew new attention as they line up with actions that his wife's State Department took between 2009 and 2013. In other words, look, folks, it's like this. It's the timing. Just as we saw with Obama paying the ransom, okay, and saying there's nothing to see here. You know, we had this dispute that's been going on for 37 years. We just happened to send them a plane load of cash, $400 million on pallets from a Swiss bank in a foreign currency. We just happened to do that at the same time the hostages were released. It wasn't ransom. It's all about the timing. And if you look at the timing of what was going on with Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, it is far from coincidental. As the Daily Mail pointed out, they said 24 different organizations paid the president while they had issues standing before the State Department. And as Breitbart pointed out in June this year, the Chinese government paid Bill Clinton, a massive speaking fee 10 days before Hillary made her quote-unquote Asia pivot, okay, where they turned to Asia. Now, this was documented in the book Clinton Cash, which the mainstream media wants to tell you absolutely nothing to see there, move along. This is absolutely not true, but we are seeing how it is true. We can see from these emails that were released that Judicial Watch is putting there how the people at the top of the Clinton Foundation are contacting Hillary Clinton's subordinates, telling them, schedule these appointments, get these people and get them jobs in the State Department, get them appointments with the highest people at Lebanon, and do it now. These guys are big donors. You understand, can't you? Do we have to, how many times do we have to draw the lines to connect the dots here? But here's what they say in the book Clinton Cash. At the center of the U.S. policy towards China was Hillary Clinton. At this critical time for U.S.-China relations, Bill Clinton gave a number of speeches that were underwritten by the Chinese government and its supporters. These funds were paid to the Clintons' bank account directly, while Hillary was negotiating with China on behalf of the United States. And in response to that, of course, Trump has said, tell me, folks, does that work? Hillary Clinton sold out our workers and our country for Beijing. This is what Trump says. Hillary Clinton has also been the biggest promoter of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which will ship millions more of our jobs overseas and will give up congressional power to an international foreign commission. And oh, by the way, for all of those who are out there saying, oh, this is the TPP is set up, this is the way it's sold by the globalists in both parties at the top. The TPP is there to fight China. Remember when Donald Trump pointed that out and they came back and said, no, China's not part of the TPP. Look, China can be added as they were to the World Trade Organization at any time. Once we create the TPP, it creates an international commission. As Trump pointed out, China can be a part of that commission at any time. And that commission will decide which countries, which industries and which countries will prosper and which ones will be shut down. They will control your economy. You will have absolutely no control of it at the time. And remember, when we look at these cover-ups, and now I want to get to the cover-up now, because when we look at the way they've covered this up, it was just back on June 30th that we had the Department of Justice say they were going to delay for 27 months the request to produce correspondence with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's 4 top aides and the Clinton Foundation. 27 months. In other words, the middle of her first term. That was when they're going to put it out. That's the way the Department of Justice and the Obama administration has colluded with Hillary Clinton to cover up her crimes, just as they will not prosecute her for multiple felony violations of national security law. Now, in the press release that came out today, Judicial Watch laid out the steps of the cover-up, how they resisted trying to release this information. It was a very long time coming. They pointed out that even though they finally got some of these emails released, they said State Department spokesman Brock Johnson alerted Cheryl Mills and Hillary Clinton's then chief of staff that a significant Freedom of Information Act request had been made for records showing the number of email accounts used by then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. So this was back in 2012. And if you look at that article, you can see that email from Brock Johnson to Cheryl Mills telling her that there is a FOIA request looking for all of these emails, okay? Earlier this year, they say these were finally produced in March of 2016. So it took from December 2012 to March of 2016 to get it. Why? Because they continually lied and said that they did not have any records. And he points out earlier this year, the State Department Office of Inspector General concluded that the statements coming from the State Department that, quote, there were no records response that was sent into response to this request was inaccurate and incomplete. In other words, they kept saying, we want your records as part of this FOIA request. They said, we don't have any records like that. And the Office of Inspector General, who, by the way, remember during Hillary Clinton's tenure there at Secretary of State, there wasn't a permanent Office of Inspector General. She made sure that it was a temporary position that was being changed. But this person said, no, that's not true. That's inaccurate and untrue. Now, they point out that in this email, he warns Mills, tells her we need to get this stuff. She acknowledges that, thanks him for it. And as they were going through, they found that there were multiple people within the department that said they were not even looking, okay? May 10th, 2013, the Information Program Services replied to the Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, the people who sent the FOIA request, said, no records responsive to your request were located. Again, they get this from multiple organizations, multiple people within the State Department were all lying about this, and they find from these email correspondence, they didn't even bother to look. They just said, there's nothing to see here, move on. We're not giving you information. Precisely what Hillary Clinton does on a day-to-day basis when she's not throwing out Red Scare conspiracies.
This is the answer for your children to totally absorb the multivitamins, the minerals, the amino acids, everything at once. Unveiled Vitamin Mineral Fusion Advanced Multivitamin Formula, 30 servings, fruit punch flavored dietary supplement. It is simply amazing. InfoWarsLife.com.
There's a million different products like this out there that they're good in different ways. But this takes all of the vitamins, all of the essential amino acids, all of the essential compounds and minerals that you need, puts it into something that's great tasting as opposed to like clumpy, gross stuff. And you can put it in your drink every morning. I put it in my protein shake. It is the platinum standard, in my view, of multivitamins in terms of an advanced multi-drink vitamin.
The cleanest, the purest, new stuff had to be invented. That's why it took this long to even bring us something this good.
Some companies are going to take a small amount of vitamins and make it, so there's so much filler, it looks like there's a lot. This is ultra concentrated. We're not playing games here. Okay,
well, that's my philosophy. That's your philosophy.
Yeah,
I want to, but again, there's some great stuff out there.
Yeah,
and there's other,
No, of course, definitely.
There's other powders I promote at InfoWarsHealth.com. Yeah, they're excellent. I mean, there's some good stuff out there. This is just the very best we can bring you, and when you buy it, you support InfoWars, you support the reporters, you support yourself. Tell folks about some of these other things that are in this and why this is just this total, complete package for your body. Because, again, we didn't put the synthetic amino acids. We didn't put the synthetic vitamins. We put the plant-based, high-quality, clean, natural ingredients into this.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got your standard vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin E, the list goes on.
A huge amount of vitamin C, by the way. Tell folks about that.
1,000+% of your daily value, which is what you need. Because the, FDA guidelines, we all know about those. Zinc, magnesium, selenium, L-glutamine. Each one of these, you could go on for about 10 minutes about the benefits of these things. Alpha-lipoic acid, folic acid, calcium, and the list goes on. 34 other ones you can check out. Go to InfoWarsLife.com. The label's up there. You've got the entire ingredients list that you can neurotically examine for yourself. And just... By
the way, look on the other side, too, because we're showing people the... minerals and things. Let's look at the vitamins right there. All it's got in there. I mean, it's amazing.
Top left.
Again, if you're radio listeners, InfoWars.com/show. Vitamin A has 4,333% from beta carotene and what's that other source? I just know that's all the best sources.
Retinol. So you've also got your vitamin D at 1,000 IU, which is a large dose, actually. And you know what? Some people could say, well, isn't this competing with your other products? Well, yeah, you know what? We could be like some people and just take all the stuff that we sell also at InfoWarsLife.com and not put any of it, but then it wouldn't be a balanced formula, and we're not going to do that. And it might actually hurt us in the long run to put all the best stuff in here, but that's just the way we got to do it, because we can't start thinking like that.
So get them today, InfoWarsLife.com, or call toll-free 888-253-3139.